Yes, that's right. Hello, my name's Joe. I am from the YouTube channel Joyrider TV, which, as I said, is probably the best source of information on the internet right now for small catamaran sailing. I'm going to be talking about all of the types of catamaran that I feel that you should know about. There is a lot of information going to be coming across in the next 30 minutes, but don't worry, you will be able to see this on Joyrider TV on YouTube in case you miss anything. And just so I don't forget, if anybody is interested in learning to sail catamarans, then Wild Wind Sailing Holidays in Greece is the best place, probably in the world. And you can find out more just over next to the Hobie cat behind us. All right, so we're going to crack on, starting off with Rotomolded plastic catamarans. These are the perfect boats to learn sailing on because they are designed to be as easy as possible to sail. They're extremely strong, they require no maintenance at all, and one of the common themes that are with all of the Rotomolded catamarans is that they all have a lot of volume in the hulls. That means that you can carry a lot of weight on these boats for the size of the boat. This is the range of Rotomolded catamarans from Hobie Cat. The most famous Rotomolded catamaran, probably of all time, has got to be the Hobie Wave. Yes, you'll find Hobie Waves on the beach in front of more hotels than you will find any other type of catamaran because they are so user-friendly, very, very easy to sail and very simple and zero maintenance. But although this is what they're designed for, people will race anything these days. And yes, there is a very popular Hobie Wave racing scene in the United States with over 80 boats attending their national championships every year. Something much more modern is from RS Sailing, the Cat 14, which really has taken all of the developments over the years to make the most user-friendly rotomolded catamaran available. You're not going to believe it, but Topcat, also from the UK, build a 14-foot rotomolded catamaran as well, which does a very similar job to the RS boat. Now, with all of these boats, when the wind is up, yes, they are a lot of fun, very exciting, and you can leave the jib at home, leave the crew at home, and have a really great time on your own on one of these boats. Now, for smaller or younger sailors, the RS Cat 12, you can actually see one in this hall after we finished, if you like. It is basically like how the Hobie Wave has evolved, and it's a much more modern design. And one of the key features with the more modern boats is they've got more places to grab hold of, makes it so much easier to get these boats in and out of the water. Topaz also have done a 12. Seems like a popular route to take for the smaller sailor. Now, for the larger sailor or for adults, perhaps looking for more performance from a rotomolded boat, there's a 16 as well. And like a lot of catamarans these days, the boats are available with little upgrades, like the Spinnaker kit is an upgrade which a lot of catamarans do share. And the RS16 also features a double trapeze. Topaz have got a 16 as well. Very similar kind of mission statement with that boat, but just a slightly different hull shape, slightly older design. Now, the most famous, well-used 16-foot roto-molded boat of all time is the Dart 16. The Dart 16 first came around in the mid-90s, and it has been used in more sailing schools than any other type of catamaran. Yes, This is Ed Swain sailing on the east coast of England. Yeah, the Dart 16, as well as being a great training boat, is also just a great boat for going sailing on, having a good time, great performance there. And then a notable mention of a roto-molded boat has to go to the Hobie GETAWAY. Now, this is the ultimate party boat. You could get 6 adults on a Hobie GETAWAY and a dog, but loads of space on there. So, moving on. If a concern is the storage and the transportation of a catamaran, then the inflatable boats really do tick these boxes. The smallest inflatable boat has got to be the Minicat Guppy. It's very small, but it's big enough for 1 adult to sail single-handed, or perhaps 2 kids. And it is so small that it packs down into 1 bag, measuring 1.50 meters long, and you can easily get it into the back of your car, and it just takes 20 minutes from in the car to on the water. Of course, there are bigger inflatable boats like the SmartCat from Austria, or what I consider to be the industry standard inflatable catamaran is the Minicat 420, which has got some exceptional design that goes on there. It's very well built. And yes, I've got one, that's me. And it is really great fun to sail. You could sail a boat like this with up to 3 adults, so over 200 kilos, because with these inflatable hulls, they do have a lot of volume, so they can carry a lot of weight. Now you can see in this picture, underneath the boat, this is a plastic skeg which fits underneath the hull, and this is to stop the boat from slipping sideways through the water. On other boats like the Happy Cat Hurricane, rather than having a plastic skeg, it has a single pivoting centerboard which does the same job. The Happy Cat is probably one of the biggest of the inflatable boats, much like the party boat of the inflatable world. Also great fun in a strong wind. Okay, so moving on to a fiberglass catamarans. The first type we're going to look at are those with asymmetric hulls. Now, with all of the different types of catamaran, we need to have some sort of device to stop the boat from just sliding sideways through the water. And on the asymmetric hulled boats, they've got a very flat outside edge which digs into the water, stopping the boat from just sliding off. The first one ever designed and built and manufactured was the Hobie 14. It doesn't always go quite as badly as this, but the Hobie 14, because it was the earliest design, does have some design flaws which the sailors of the 14s absolutely love. These design flaws are the hulls have got very low volume and the rig is too powerful for the hulls, but it makes it a very exciting boat, but very challenging to sail. Now, the 14 does have a huge following around the world with some highly competitive racing that goes on. This was actually in the United States at the US Nationals, but every 2 years there's a Hobie 14 World Championships attracting on average 60 to 80 boats. So it's still a very popular racing class. Now, because the 14 had very low volume hulls and was quite challenging to sail, and you almost definitely couldn't sail one with 2 people, Hobie Cat in 1971 designed the Hobie 16, the most popular catamaran in the world. In fact, it's only a slight exaggeration to say there are more Hobie 16s in the world than every other single catamaran put together. Over 100,000 boats built, and they really do offer such fun sailing. For teams up to about 160 kilograms combined, the Hobie 16 has got a great power to weight ratio, so it doesn't need much wind to get it going. And you can sail it single-handed or with a crew. And every year there is some very competitive racing going on in the Hobie 16s, with a European Championships every year and then a World Championships every other year. This year the Europeans are in Poland, so if anybody's got a spare week and a Hobie 16 and you want to go to Poland, then that's a good combination. So Hobie Cat make matching sails for all of the events as well. So the top one was from Florida in 2021. And then the bottom one, we actually had the World Championships in China, and the sails were absolutely brilliant there. Now, the other big brand from the US back in the 70s was Prindle, who took some of the Hobie Cat design faults and improved upon them. So we can see with the 15, it has much more volume in the hulls, which makes it much easier to sail. So this was the single-hander, and then the double-handed version was the Prindle 16. But you won't find many of these boats in Europe. There's still more in the US. But the Prindle 16 has got enough volume to carry a serious amount of weight. So on to our next type of boat now, the boats with Skeg hulls. These are very much the easiest boats to sail and definitely the right catamaran to start on if you're looking to get into some catamaran sailing. The Skeg hull, basically it's like a keel that runs down the center of the boat, and the best one to start with is the best one to start with. This is the Hobie Dragoon. It's designed as a boat for kids between the age of about 8 and 14. It's 13 feet long, it's got a double trapeze, and it's very easy to sail, but for a pair of young kids, this is absolute, what a great time. You know, we didn't have that when we were young. Again, racing for the Dragoon class every year. All of the Hobie events, they also put on Dragoon racing with a charter fleet so that the kids can get involved and do some racing as well. Like a lot of boats, the Dragoon, when the wind is up, perhaps one of the parents of the kids can take the boat out for a spin. Single-handed, kids' boats are really fun for grown-ups. That's what we find. Now, back in '91, Hobie Cat designed and built the Hobie 15. The Hobie 15 has got to be probably the best boat to learn sailing on ever built. It's a fiberglass boat. It's built like a tank, so it's very strong, but it's lighter than the Rotomolded boats and has a very easy, user-friendly rig. So the Hobie 15, a big success as a teaching boat. But like with any type of catamaran, if you throw enough wind at it, it becomes very exciting to sail. So even on a Hobie 15, you can get out and have a very good time. Now in the UK and parts of Europe, one of the more popular types of catamaran is the Dart. The Dart 15, designed as a single-hander, still a very popular racing fleet in the UK. And then the bigger version and the more popular version is the Dart 18, that since mid-90s back to the mid-80s, the Dart 18 was very much the most popular racing catamaran across Europe. It's lightweight, it's got a very simple rig, it's easy to sail, and one of the unique features with the Dart 18 is you can sail it equally single-handed or double-handed. So it really does make it one of the more versatile catamarans out there. So we're skipping forwards to the Nacra 570. Apologies to anyone who wanted to see the 500, here it is. So with these Nacra Skeg-hulled catamarans, what makes these truly unique and possibly one of the more desirable boats out there today is, even though this boat is designed for sailors of all levels, very easy to sail. These boats are finished to the same high standards as Nacra's top-of-the-range racing boats, like the Olympic Nacra 17. So these are, for a Skeg-hulled boat, the best you can get. Again, they can be upgraded with a spinnaker. They have a double trapeze, very sporty. Now, for the bigger sailor, there's always an option. So the Nacra 570, actually the biggest of the Skeg-hulled catamarans available, and it offers this same level of finishing as the 500 and all of the Nacra racing boats, but this really is a great boat from Nacra. Available with more racing sails as well. So at the moment, it wouldn't be fleet racing, it would be more kind of handicap racing or long distance events that you'd participate on with one of these. So we're now moving on to the more advanced catamarans, and that's those with a symmetrical hull. Now, on the boats with a symmetrical hull, again, we need to have some means of stopping the boat from sliding sideways through the water, and that is either going to be with a dagger board or a pivoting centerboard. Der Schwenkschwerter, I believe. It's actually my favorite bit of German that I know, is pivoting centerboard. And one of the earlier boats that has been built, again from Hobie, this is the Hobie 17, which was designed back in the 80s as probably the first real performance single-hander. It's got low volume hulls, these picnic bench style wings to trapeze off, and it is a very difficult boat to manage. It's got a very powerful rig. Now moving on to the Hobie 18. The Hobie 18 was designed and built because for a lot of sailors, the Hobie 16 didn't have enough volume in the hulls. So the Hobie 18 was designed for the heavier sailors. So even if you're up to about 200 kilograms, the Hobie 18 will really tickle along very nicely. And it was a very popular boat back in the late 70s and 80s. And although the boat has been discontinued, sadly, it has been having a resurgence, which has been coming from Olympic veteran John Forbes in Australia, who's been basically buying old, thrown away Hobie 18s, refurbishing them, making some modifications, and he's basically got this reimagined Hobie 18 class, which is growing in popularity all the time. It's making these old boats feel brand new, and they're getting over 20 boats out regularly at different race meetings throughout the season. Now, if you haven't seen it, this is something to put on your list of things to have a look at. This is the movie Sharing the Wind, where the Hobie 18 had the starring role. This is basically like 70s porn on catamarans, but there's nothing spicy going on, just catamaran sailing in big waves. So you have to check that one out. All right, so if the very lucky children started their catamaran sailing career on the Hobie Dragoon, the next step would be the Nacra 15. The Nacra 15 is an extremely technical, full-on racing boat designed and built for teenagers who are looking to go towards the Olympic Games. So from about 14 to 18 years old, with a mixed team, the Nacra 15 really is a very, very high-end racing boat. And it has a very popular racing circuit as well throughout Europe, with over 80 boats going to the World Championships. So it really is a very popular class. All right, moving on to the formula classes of catamarans. Now, these are definitely the more of the racing level boats. And all of these formula boats, they're basically what we call a box rule, which means any manufacturer can build a boat as long as it is building it within the specifications. So it would have to be a certain length, the width, the sails would have to be the right size, and they'd have to be measured to the right shape as well. But then anybody can build a Formula catamaran. So the 16 is the class which is more suitable to the lighter sailor. Optimal weight for a Formula 16 is around 120 kilos combined, helm and crew. But again, a great feature of the Formula 16 is you can leave the jib at home, again, leave the crew at home, and you can compete evenly, single-handed, or with 2 sailors on board. But many manufacturers have built Formula 16 catamarans over the years, and probably the most competitive Formula 16 right now is the Nacra F16 coming out of Holland. And the most successful Formula 16 of all time is the Viper from Good Old Design. It's won more races than any other type of Formula 16. Now, slightly sad story is the story of the Formula 17. The Formula 17 class was launched back in 2002 as a single-handed Formula class. Only 2 boats were built for this class, from Nacra and from Hobie, but for one reason or another, the Formula 17 class never took off, which was a shame back then. But what it means today is there are a lot of Nacra Inter 17s, and Hobie FX1s around that can be bought for very little money for the amount of boat that you get. So for about 2,000 euros, you could get a pretty nice Hobie FX1, which is a lot of boat for the money, and the sailing is really high performance, even though the Formula 17 class died before it was even born. So now the most popular racing class in catamarans at the moment, this is the Formula 18 class, which started in 1995 and started off with 3 boats. The Darthawk from the UK, the Nacra Inter 18 from Holland, and the Hobie Tiger from France. These are the boats that got the thing started. And with the Hobie Tiger, it also had its own class racing as well, which really did make it a great type of boat to be into, with the first 2 world championships for the Tigers attracting over 100 boats each time. But the Formula 18s today are getting over 250 boats at each world championships. And a lot of the sailors competing are coming from the America's Cup, from Sail GP, from all of this very high level. So getting inside the top, I'd like to say top 20, but it's probably top 40, is a very tough job to do. More recently in the Formula 18 catamarans, the hulls have taken on a pretty radical new shape, and that is almost like the hulls are upside down with a very flat bottom, rounded over the top, and very long dagger boards and rudders. This is said to be much more efficient, and a lot of the boats have this wave-piercing bow, so that when you're out in waves, the boat just drives straight through them rather than having to ride over the top. So the Hobie Wildcat was Hobie's replacement for the Tiger. And then we have the Cirrus from France, which has been very popular ever since it was launched. And then more recently from Cirrus, they designed and built the 901, which has a truly revolutionary hull shape and said to be very, very quick downwind when it's windy. Yeah, very strange looking boat, but fierce. And then the most, what would you call it? The most successful Formula 18 of all time has been the C2 from Good Old Design, which just recently, in the last few years, it was replaced by the Acura. And you can see on this picture of the Acura, the mainsail actually comes all the way down to the trampoline. That's what's called a deck sweeper mainsail. And this is definitely said to be the most efficient mainsail shape for a racing boat today, because you don't lose any power at all, because the trampoline keeps it from escaping round the bottom of the sail. A few other examples: the Windrush Edge from Australia, this Scorpion Exploder from Poland, and then Nacra have had a few very successful Formula 18s over the years. The Infusion was up there for a long time and recently replaced by the Evolution, which is Nacra's current F18. More sadness, I'm afraid. We had the International Formula 20 class. Now, this was going to be the Formula class for heavier sailors. So if you're 200 kilograms combined, these boats were designed with much more volume in the hulls so that the heavier sailor could compete and get the most performance out of the boats. But like with the 17s, the 20s just didn't make it as a class. But the Nacra Inter 20 is still a very popular boat, and it's raced a lot in the United States, with big fleets coming out for open meetings and the national championships. So it's not the end of the world for the Nacra Inter 18. Just moving on, this is the Hurricane 5.9. Mostly found these days in the UK, but they were popular throughout Europe from the mid-80s to the mid-90s. And we're just moving on a little bit more quickly now because the clock is ticking. We're on to the Invisible Tornado. The Tornado, first designed in 1967, and it became the Olympic class. The original Tornado had a single trapeze, a simple rig, and the helmsman had to hike out. Now, this would never do. So in the year 2000, the Tornado underwent quite a radical rig change, changing to a square top rig, added a spinnaker and a double trapeze, which really did make the boat feel extremely modern. And this is still the sail layout that the Tornado is raced with today. There's a World Championships for Tornadoes every year, which attracts over 30 boats, which might not sound like a lot, but the Tornado is the biggest and fastest non-foiling catamaran period today, and that many boats on the race course, it feels certainly busy enough. And then just moving on. Again, for those of you who've just joined us, by the way, if it feels like we're going through this rather quickly, don't worry. This will be available to see later on Joyrider TV on YouTube. Well worth a look. The Nacra 17 is the current Olympic class catamaran. It's for a mixed team, and it doesn't matter which way round the team is, whether it's the girl who wants to helm or crew, or vice versa. But it is the most technical and technically challenging catamaran to sail out there today. And then we're just finishing off now with where it all started, and this was with the A-Class. It's a single-handed catamaran, first came around in the 1960s as the class. It wasn't called the Classic back then, it was just called the A-Class. And the A-Class is where all of the major research and development comes from in catamarans. So all of the foiling development on the catamarans first gets tested on the A-Class boats. And the latest development in the A-Class fleet is the very bendy soft masts, which is actually technology which has been taken from ice yachts, said to be very efficient when traveling at a high speed. All right, so there we go. That's all we've got time for on this one. Thanks very much for paying attention. And if you want to see any more of this, check out Joyrider TV on YouTube, or I'll just be over by the Hobie 16 if anybody fancies a chat. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You know everything about all the catamarans on the world.
Too much.
So much. Yeah, too much. Very, very interesting.